All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our second episode from the series Scaling Smart, the Partner Growth Podcast. This is where we talk about what actually drives growth, from fixing broken co-sell motions to giving partners a real seat at the GTM table. We're unpacking how to scale smart in today's ecosystem first world. Last week, we discussed about scale or stall, what it takes to grow a partner practice. And today, with Jeff Ballard, our very own guest, we will be discussing Beyond MDF, incentives and programs that actually drive scale. Jeff, once again, thank you very much for taking the time out to join us for our second episode today. I hope you're doing well.
Absolutely. Happy to be here. Thanks, Sandy.
Great, thanks. So we're going to be discussing about going beyond MDF and incentives and programs that actually drive scale. Before we actually jump into the questions, I thought I'll just give a brief in terms of what we'd like to cover today. Market development funds are just one piece of the puzzle. And in this episode, we're basically going to be exploring tiering models, sales performance incentive funds, accelerators, and behavioral incentives that go beyond budget allocation and scale with your ecosystem. With that being said, my first question to Jeff for today. What's the role of MDF in scale and where does it fall short?
Well, it's supposed to be all about helping partners drive demand generation activities. It's helping to support their activities where they can do, whether it's attending a trade show, whether it's putting on a regional event, maybe running some ads, or creating content. That's what it's supposed to be doing. Where it falls short, typically, is where vendor partners are using it to do what I like to call silly stuff. They're fun, but not necessarily conducive to finding or working or winning deals. Whether that's getting box seats at a sporting event, getting suites at a nightclub, or any number of things. I've seen a number of requests that came in. I'm going, okay, so this looks like a fun event. Yes, the U.S. Open is a great event, but how is this going to lead to business? Because typically in those scenarios, everybody's involved in watching a game or watching the match. They're watching the event, and that's what they're coming for. And I've run these in the past, so I'm not casting shade at companies that have done this. I've run them in the past, and one of the things that I would see is invariably somebody who's a high target profile for us says, "Oh, can I bring my son? Oh, can I bring my neighbor? Oh, can I bring my?" It's like, okay, that kind of defeats the purpose because now you're going to be engaged with that person. And you're not going to necessarily be engaging with the sales folks as part of the conversation. Plus, the way that I would set them up is we had a learning experience prior to that game or whatever the general experience was, where we would walk through, we would do a webinar, or not a webinar, but we would do a presentation, interactive presentation, or something ahead of time to be able to get those messages across. That gave us things to talk about while the event was going on. But yeah, that's where I'm seeing a lot of times where it falls short, is just doing it with something that's really cool. And yes, people want to go to, but it's not really conducive to conducting business.
Understood. I see a lot of clients that I work with as well in the space. They always like the idea of providing an experience. And that experience can come in multiple sorts, right? So, for example, you spoke about maybe getting a ticket to the U.S. Open, or maybe watching the Formula One race in Miami when it's happening, or in Vegas when it's happening, or something like that. Apart from setting context up front in terms of what the meeting's going to be about, or providing that experience, do you also think it's very important for both teams as well as partners to kind of understand, all right, we are spending money, we are going to be executing this, we are going to be getting the C-level executive possibly at a game or at an event or a race or something like that. But end of the day, the goal is that we got to be able to track this and measure this. How do we get that right? Do you think that alignment's important upfront before you jump into providing an experience like this?
Absolutely. And, definitely not knocking experiences. I mean, they are a great way to get an engagement or to secure that emotional connection that you can't get with other types of things. But doing it in a constructive, cohesive manner, like I said, not just there's times when, hey, let's get a bunch of seats at a baseball game.
Yeah,
And literally, it wasn't in a suite, it was just a bunch of seats that were together in the stands.
yeah,
To me, that was a waste of money.
yeah,
Um, Counteract that with at another venue, another stadium,
yeah,
where my company had technology that was being utilized in the stadium. So
yeah,
being able to do an event in the suite that the
yeah,
partner had, but then walking through and showing them how the technology was being utilized in the stadium
yeah.
really helped make a great connection. And
Mm,
it brought home, we're here for business. Here's how this organization is using this technology for these types of purposes, which outside of the sporting realm, it ties to whatever aspects for financial services or the companies that we had in the audience. So most definitely, the experiences can be great, but they should be tied to an overall message or theme that you want to reinforce with your customer, and through your partner with your customer.
I think that's a great pointer that you brought out there, which brings me it actually brings me back to one of an experience event of sorts that we had done for one of our customers that was selling a cybersecurity product, and they had actually brought in their partner who runs the services component of it. And there were 20-25 executives in a room that they brought together, and there was somebody who hacked into 4 or 5 of their devices. An ethical hacker hacked into 4 or 5 of their devices, and they were kind of putting them. I mean, obviously they cascaded off the information that was not supposed to be put up, but they were saying, "I'm going to be getting into this particular app of yours. I'm going to get this particular app here." They put it up on the screen, and then the services company came in and said, "Okay, this is how you prevent hacking," and then they demonstrated their product. That was really cool for an experience, I thought.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's a good way to bring it home. Man, that's a dangerous way though. Somebody gets a little mad or something gets shown improperly. Yeah, that's not a good thing.
Yeah, well, they were actually warned up ahead before the event, saying that something's gonna come up, and that they should not feel ashamed, but they'll obviously keep their personal information and all of that like aside. But something fun for about 5 minutes, and the executives were okay. They walked home happy, and eventually turned out that a couple of those executives actually bought that product.
Oh, I would imagine.
All right. What kind of modern incentive models are seeing success from your view? SPIFs, accelerators, tiering. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's been a conversation that goes round and round, and I watch it on LinkedIn and other channels who's talking about this. And what I'm seeing is everybody seems to be focused the chatter around prioritizing the right partners. So it's less about doing spiffs, it's less about tiering. Maybe tiering to a degree because yeah, you want to focus on those top partners,
Yeah,
but the whole focus tends to be around quantity versus quality, and people are now leaning more towards the quality.
mm,
Yeah, I've still seen some partners driving quantity, in which case you have to do that tiering in order to prioritize your own resources. Where do you focus your resources on the biggest chances for success? You're going to be doing it at those top tier. But in general, that seems to be where most people are focused, is helping those who are most engaged, have the most success, most opportunity for success, really prioritize around that. Some of the other things that I've seen that I haven't seen put into practice yet, I've heard people talking about, and that is scalable type of incentives. So the more that they are involved in a deal, so let's say, for example, they bring a deal to a vendor, they get X%. If they work that deal with the vendor, they get, X plus percent.
Yeah.
If they end up closing that deal, they get X plus plus. So
Yeah.
depending on how involved they are in that deal, starts to ratchet up the amount of the percentage of revenue that they get back from that. I thought that was a really interesting one. That takes a lot of infrastructure,
Yeah.
or at least a very set infrastructure to track that, because
Yeah.
otherwise that could open up a whole can of worms of, I was
Yeah.
involved at this level and I only got paid to that level.
Yeah. I think your tracking mechanism's got to be really solid when it comes to that, and also reporting mechanisms got to be top notch in order to kind of get those.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we could do like a 5-hour podcast on the infrastructure and being
Yeah.
able to track and talk
Yeah.
about partner attribution,
Yeah.
and never have any resolution to it. So yeah, that is a tricky one.
Sure. Can you talk to me a little more about how can you tailor partner incentives for different partner maturity levels?
It really becomes, I like that answer, because you really need to focus in on where the partner is and understanding what they need at that stage and what stage that they're at. Being able to then address that content accordingly. One of the last programs that I set up was, we had the base level. When you came in, we were providing access to all the tools and resources, to the portals and to recordings and the technical enablement and all of that. And as we started seeing those partners complete that and start to bring opportunities to us, then we started working with them, and we actually started opening up that next level of incentives, where we had co-selling, or we had different level of enablement, some of those types of activities. So it becomes a give to get model. The only challenge with those is you have to be very careful, because really both sides need to give and both sides need to get. And if you get too focused on, hey, that partner needs to demonstrate their value before we provide anything, kind of becomes a catch-22, because you need to give them enough to bring in opportunities,
Yeah.
so that you can provide them more details
Yeah.
and more incentives. But it's really around, as we look at the different types of incentives, it's access to content, it's certainly the revenue, it's the enablement, it's bringing leads to them. So the more a partner proves their worth, that's where you start to bring in the good stuff, if you will. Being able to bring leads to them. Now, large organizations like Microsoft, AWS, and I would say Microsoft, definitely will bring in partners and they distribute out the leads, and partners, that's what they're looking for. And that's great. But being able to, if you're a smaller organization and you've got to make sure these leads get followed up on, you want to make sure you've got the right partners that you're putting these out to. So that's some of the ways that you can incentivize.
Great. And how do you really measure success or ROI on these scaling programs? And if you're not doing well, how do you course correct quickly?
So you skipped a question, but that's all right.
There's a reason I did it intentionally, because the previous time we actually ended up with a real life example, and I wanted to get that as the last one. So I
Okay,
wanted to continue with the same trend as to what we did the previous time by having like a real life example that you could share at the end. So it's not as just talking theory, but you're also showcasing practice, and I wanted to kind of highlight that.
Okay. All right. Cool. Yeah.
We'll do this again.
I was working ahead there and was like getting in my mind ready to go. I was like, wait, you just asked a different question.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. I caught you off guard there.
So,
All right. I'm going to ask you the question again. How do you measure success and ROI on these scaling programs? And if you're not able to see the kind of results that you're looking at, how do you course correct quickly?
yeah, so there's a number of things. One that I really like to track personally, and it doesn't show up in a CRM, It shows up in my spreadsheets where I'm tracking engagement. How active are they working with us? Are they attending the things that we're doing? Are they participating in partner webinars? Are they participating in the coaching calls that I set up? Are they doing events with us? Doing the joint marketing and the co-selling. So I'll track those. And like I said, they're typically not in a CRM. I would do them in a spreadsheet and just keep track of who's doing what. So that's one of the first places that I'm looking. Then, I talk about, quite often I'll talk about doing go-to-market planning, go-to-market strategies with the partners, helping them build out a practice around the offering. And so when we do that, I take a look at how are they executing against that go-to-market plan.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that we co-create. So I was part of the development of that plan
Mm-hmm.
as the vendor. But now I'm monitoring how are they tracking to that? Is it just a plan that they put in place and they're not really following it or following through on it? Or are they really diligently driving? So that's another area where we can start to measure ROI. Is we laid out objectives in the beginning with their go-to-market strategy, and now I can track how they're doing against objectives that we mutually agreed to during our go-to-market planning. Also looking at customer meetings. Are they driving meetings either with us or on their own? As we talk about opportunities and what's going on in the market, we're doing a regular cadence of understanding their pipeline. And so being able to see, are you having customer meetings? And then out of that, what kind of opportunities are coming? So what's that ratio look like? Are your meetings to opportunities similar to ours, less than ours, more effective than ours being the vendor, that is. And then ultimately deals. So you kind of look at those three. You've got meetings, opportunities, and deals. And you can start to track those ratios to see, to judge that return on the investment. And like I said, it really starts with a go-to-market plan.
Yeah.
Because when you start to see something askew, either they're not following through or maybe they're getting meetings, but they're not getting opportunities, we can go back to that go-to-market plan and course correct pretty quickly because it does give us a roadmap of how they're taking our product to market. So now I can help better with that and drive better ROI, obviously.
I've heard this from the previous episode and this episode as well. Really looks like go to market supposed to be one of the first things that you basically do before you venture into any partner program to make it successful. Am I hearing that right?
That is what I have seen time and time and time again. And what's interesting is when I do this for a vendor with partners, I get the same feedback all the time from the partners that nobody else is doing anything like this, that nobody is providing that level of strategic alignment, strategic engagement that of any of the vendors that they're working with. And what happens there is they start to see, you're helping me build a practice. You don't want me to just sell your product.
Yeah.
You're helping me build a practice around your product, around your offer. So that means to me, I can drive more software, I can drive more services, I can drive more of what I sell. So I'm excited about that. So I'm going to be more engaged with you since you've helped me with that go-to-market strategy. So yeah, that I see as a big differentiator.
Sure. And I'm also guessing that, considering the fact that you have a blueprint in place and you know exactly what you want to do, tracking becomes much easier. You know where you're falling through the crack, you know how to improvise. It definitely helps the program quite a bit. Great pointers out there, Jeff. Can you share maybe an example of a creative program that led to significant partner engagement?
Yeah, I mean, keeping with that go-to-market theme, when I was with IBM, I put together the IBM Cloud Partner Accelerator. When I got brought onto the role, my responsibility was to help drive more cloud revenue through the channel. And, and that was with IBM Cloud. So obviously we're dealing with AWS, Microsoft, Google, those kinds of companies that are out there that have either more market share or have better name recognition, brand recognition within the cloud space. So looking at that time, I said, how can we, as IBM Cloud, help our partners cut through that noise and get some traction? And the biggest thing for us at that point was that I saw was IBM's literal 100 years of business and the knowledge that was gained and the tools and resources we have that talk about what's going on in the market and different trends and all the industries. So being able to bottle that up, package that up, I put together a go-to-market workshop that we brought in experts. We brought in people from the IBM Institute of Business Value to talk about what are the trends in the marketplace that are going on. We brought in our product team, people talking about the value of the offering that we had and how it was addressing some of the trends we were seeing in the market, how it was addressing customer needs. And then we had sellers come in and talk about how to sell based upon what those customer needs and market trends are and what we have in the product today, how to go about selling that. And we had marketing that would come in and talk about how to help market it. So we basically helped them build in that 2-day workshop a go-to-market plan. And that program, I saw results on both sides of the fence. From the IBM side, we saw partners were growing 50% faster than partners that were not in the program. So my management was happy, but really the big thing for me was hearing what partners said. The value of the content we were delivering, the engagement that we were delivering, whether it was anecdotally, like I said, people would say nobody else is providing this for us, or through the surveys, the information that we got where partners would say, what was it, over 90% said we're going to be executing what we learned here within the next 6 months. And I think it was something ridiculous, like 85% said immediately they were going to be executing. So, good number of good response from the partners and good response from the company side.
Impressive. Like always, great ideas, amazing insights and input. Jeff, once again, thank you very much for spending time with us on this one. And I will see you on the next episode.
And now the last word. If your biggest partner incentive is box seats to a game, congratulations, you just paid for a great view of Zero Pipeline. MDF isn't the villain, but it's far from the whole plot. Got questions on building tiered incentives that actually work? Want to debate spiffs, accelerators, or how to move partners from passive to powerful? Send them in. We're all ears and spreadsheets. Email us at grow@buyerforesight.com or drop them in the comments.